When the milling industry in the 1880s began to turn whole wheat kernels into white flour to extend its shelf life, they didn't only lose many of the nutrients, such as vitamins and minerals, but they also lost 90% of the dietary fiber. Could the difference of disease rates between England and native Africans possibly be explained by the difference in diet? And then it hit him one day when, of all things, he noticed African stools. African stools. These stools look different. They did not look like the British stools he remembered. These African stools actually were large and soft and moist, and indeed the very opposite of many British stools. And so he devised an experiment with his African patients. He gave them deep red-colored berries to eat and told them, they will color your stools red. When you see red stools, be sure you come back at once to the clinic and let me know. Well, he expected these people to come back in 3 to 5 days because that was the common transit time for many English and American people. How shocked he was to see his patients jubilantly coming back within 24 hours and said, Dr. Burkett, we found it. You know, as funny as it is, it ultimately led to the discovery of the role of the missing ingredient, dietary fiber, in its many different forms. Now we know that insoluble fiber, as found in grains, will provide greater satiety and a sense of fullness, which is so important in the management of overweight. You see, now you can eat more of these high fiber, low calorie foods and weigh less. Think of it.
Welcome, welcome. As you can see, well, I'll tell you in a minute. I am Dr. Sal Lacanina. I am the Medical Director for Lifestyle Medicine Institute. And as you can see, as I started to say, Dr. Hans Diehl is going to be our guest today. So we're going to have another fabulous show. But before we get on to that, I want to thank Dr. Lori Marbus, who was on last week talking to us about the value of telehealth. And obviously, we talked about the CHIP program and whole food, plant-based nutrition. So thank you to Dr. Marbus. And today's show, we're going to talk about eating more and weighing less. We'll be obviously be talking about fiber and whole foods and such. So before we get on to the show, let me give you, for people that don't already know Dr. Diehl, who I would be surprised if you didn't know him. Dr. Diehl was chosen one of America's 20 superheroes for the health movement by Vegetarian Times. He's actually the founder of, I've known Dr. Diehl for many years through the work that I did at Lee Health. When I was there, we did 19 CHIP programs, and Dr. Diehl is actually the founder of the Lifestyle Medicine Institute in Loma Linda. He's a clinical professor of preventive medicine at the School of Medicine at Loma Linda University in Loma Linda, California. And he's really been in this leadership role for more than 30 years, this fast-growing field of lifestyle medicine that we've all been involved in. And he's been a pioneer in the epidemiology and the training of professionals in lifestyle medicine. And as mentioned, the founder of the CHIP program, the Complete Health Improvement Program. The program in and of itself has had over 85,000 graduates, and the emphasis really has been on not only the treatment of chronic illness, but also the reversal and the prevention of disease. So this is a really important point that we'll get into a little bit more. Dr. Diehl has been involved in numerous research studies, and there really have been about 45 peer-review published studies in the medical journals. His books include Health Power, Dynamic Living, Take Charge of Your Health, and U-Turn, co-authored with Eileen Luddington, and the Optimal Diet Cookbook, co-authored by Darlene Blaney. Interestingly, his books have been translated into 36 different languages, and there are more than 2 million copies in circulation. So that's amazing. Dr. Diehl earned his doctorate degree in health sciences and has a Master of Public Health in Public Health Nutrition from Loma Linda University. Prior to founding Lifestyle Medicine Institute 30 years ago, he was the Director of Education and Research at the Pritikin Longevity Center, and I'm sure that a lot of individuals that are on the line already know that. He's contributed to the development of the UCLA Cheer Center and was awarded a postdoctorate research fellowship in cardiovascular epidemiology through the NIH. So without further ado, I would like to ask Dr. Diehl to come onto the screen, please.
Hi, Dr. Sal. You made too much fuss about me.
Well, we have your shoulders to stand on. You know, there are certain people in the whole world of lifestyle medicine whose shoulders we stand on, and certainly yours are part of that group of elite individuals. So we thank you for everything that you've done over the years. So we're going to talk about eating more and weighing less, but it's really interesting that over the past 30 years, most Americans have actually gained about 20 pounds. We know that about 3/4 of the population now is either overweight or obese. We're seeing more and more of that in young children, unfortunately, and even seeing type 2 adult onset diabetes in adolescents. So, you know, weight is a critical marker and a contributor to all the chronic illnesses that we deal with on a regular basis. And we also know that about over 85 to 86% of the healthcare dollars that are spent are actually spent on treating chronic illnesses. You mentioned previously when we were talking about the management of chronic illnesses, and what I want to point out to the audience is that management is not reversal of disease, it's not cure of disease, it's not prevention of disease. So I know you're going to talk about that, and as the founder of the CHIP program, we know that there have been 85,000, and I've heard even more greater numbers of individuals that have been involved in the program with more than 40 to 50 published papers. So tell us about this whole concept of weight management and how it really even makes sense to think about eating more and weighing less.
You know, it almost sounds sort of counterintuitive, right?
Mm-hmm.
The answer to weight management is actually quite simple. And that is, it's not going to happen by restricting the calories. Mm-hmm. That's what we always tell people: eat less, push away from the table.
Right.
You know, we're saying just the opposite. If you want to really lose weight, you got to eat more. This is really the no-fail success formula. You got to eat more.
Right.
Or again, these starving diets and so on. And no. Never mind counting calories. I mean, I know that counting calories, no. Calorie counting, you don't need, but calories do count, right?
Right, of course.
So when you move towards a diet where you can eat more, you don't feel the hunger pangs, you feel comfortable, you feel satisfied, and you feel life is good. And that's what we're going to talk about today. If you want to lose weight, eat more.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I know we've had previous discussions about this, the whole concept of food versus food products. And I always like to think about plant or plants. So the food that we get today comes from a plant. It comes from a facility. It comes from a physical manufacturing place, and that's why we call them food products. But the food that you're talking about eating more of are actually plants, right? I mean, that's a really important point for us to think about. So how do you help the audience really make sense out of food versus food products?
Yeah, we want to focus on foods that don't come from the laboratory. Right. People are these products. Well, they're really products. You take, for instance, just think about this. You take corn and you strip it of all of its nutritional value, and then you sell the corn oil, right? Think about this. You take 14 ears of corn. Out of that, you extract 1 tablespoon of corn oil.
Crazy.
And about this, and now you got 120 calories in 1 tablespoon of corn oil. How easy it is to introduce this corn oil, this product, this industrialized product, into all kinds of things. Take, for instance, you have some potatoes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Look at this.
I love potatoes. That's a nice looking potato.
Or let me show you something else here. Look at this one here. Can you see those?
Yep, whole bunch of potatoes.
You know, that's 3.5 pounds of potatoes.
Okay.
That's 1,000 calories.
3.5. Okay.
Okay. Now, we don't eat potatoes anymore.
Right.
We eat no longer potatoes. We eat Pringles.
Right. Right.
Right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And this is now the same thing here. I showed you earlier 3.5 pounds of potatoes equals 1,000 calories. This is also 1,000 calories.
Mm-hmm.
This is only 7 ounces.
Wow.
Even half a pound of food. So this is half a pound of food, 1,000 calories instead of 3.5 pounds of potatoes, also 1,000 calories. You know, I talked to some of my medical students. I said, listen, how long would it take you to finish this tube of Pringle?
In a heartbeat, in a couple of commercials.
They thought about that for a while, and they said, well, sir, probably, and then they had an agreement, 13 minutes.
Okay.
So in 13 minutes, you eat 1,000 calories, which is about 1/3 of a pound of fat on your body. Right? 13 minutes. And then I said, and what about these 1,000 calories here? These 9 potatoes, 3.5 pounds. Mm-hmm. You should eat those 9 potatoes. They looked at me and they said, well, probably 9 days.
Right.
Is when you have concentrated calories, especially you add fat to anything. Right. Fat for every gram has 9 calories and starch only has 4 calories. So fats are very calorie dense. So whenever you add fat to something, you really make it into a caloric bomb. Right. I mean, look at this here. This is 6 ounces. You eat this. This is a caloric bomb. It is designed in nature, foods as grown. Right. All you want, and you actually lose weight because you can only put 4 cups of food into your stomach. That's it. Mm-hmm. This is more than 4 cups, right?
You're not kidding.
You got the idea there, right? So eat foods as grown, and you can eat more food than you've ever known before. And you have not only fewer calories, but most importantly, too, you have exceptional nutritional value. You actually have nutritional density. Right. So you have high nutrition and low calories. That's what you want, isn't it?
It's really interesting over the years that I've been involved with lifestyle medicine in general, through the Lifestyle Medicine Institute, through ACLM or the Plantrician Conference. You go to these conferences and there is such an abundance of food, but a tremendous variety of food that most people that have been eating the standard American diet never eat. And, you start out with all these greens and plant-based proteins in the morning. It's just fabulous. And I like your thought about talking about calorie density and some of the stuff that I was reading beforehand, where you mentioned oats to Oreos and corn to corn chips and water to soda pop. This has been the transition of food over the years. We've gone from food to food products. We've gone from planting food to making food in plants or facilities or laboratories, as you mentioned before.
But you know what these foods do that come out of laboratory plants? Yeah. Mm-hmm. They're always irresistible. Right. Mm-hmm. Very hyper palatable. Right. They are also most of the time actually addictive because of all the salt and the sugar that's in there and the fats. Right. Mm-hmm. And so basically have a food that you cannot resist, and it's always available. It's convenient. And, once you bring it into the house, it's in the mouth. Mm-hmm. Right. And so this is a very, very tempting environment. Now, let me show you some of the slides here that I put together. Look at this. Just to give you some idea, this is the big change from foods to products, from plants to plant grown, from grown to plant produced, right? Right. you see these are empty calories, no nutritional value. And you have some of the big hitters, sugar, refined sugar, that accounts now for 16% of our calorie consumption. That means also about 30 teaspoons of sugar per person per day in this country. Then you have fats and oils. Again, no nutritional value. And again, about 24% of all the calories that we eat comes from fats and oils. And then for men, alcohol represents 4%. Look at this. Empty, non-nutritious calories account today for about 40 to 50% of all the calories that we eat. I mean, it's no wonder we are overfed and nourished. I mean, think about this. We become malnourished amidst of plenty.
Right, exactly. And that is so true. When you really look at the population today, it's really incredible to see how many people are overweight, but they're malnourished. It really is incredible. And, you know, you brought up the fact that it's salt, sugar, and fat that are so addictive in the food products that we eat. And for the people that have not read Michael Pollan's book, Salt, Sugar, and Fat, I mean, it's really amazing to read the studies that show that sugar in and of itself, when they did these rat studies, was actually more addictive than cocaine. So we really...
Let me insert here. That must-read book, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's very, very carefully documented. And what really got me very riled up was the fact that these executives at the top of these multinational companies, they knew exactly what they were doing. They knew they were hijacking the brain chemistry and hitting the pleasure center of the brain so that people had to go back for seconds and thirds and fourth. I mean, they knew how to creatively create repeat customers.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because there is such a similarity between what happened in previous years with tobacco, where the product itself was manipulated in such a way so that people became more addicted, and the same thing has happened with agribusiness. So we really have to be good consumers because of that.
Of course, you know, Dr. Sal, that the tobacco industry, the companies have largely diversified now into junk foods. The same technology, the same psychology, the same physiology of the brain to now addict people to these high sugar, high fat, high salt items.
Right.
In a sense, you know, well, it's almost criminal, isn't it?
I think it is, honestly. I think that even for physicians, I say for physicians and healthcare providers that are not talking to their patients about eating whole foods, we're really losing out. The patients are losing out on that knowledge because we don't have to write prescriptions, at least for pharmaceuticals. We should be writing prescriptions for food and exercise. That really is the first prescription we should be writing. But, you know, when you talk about and think about the standard American diet, it pretty much is made up of two components of food. It's made up of animal protein and processed foods. So what happened with this shift in our food supply over the years?
Yeah, you see, the first change we said was from foods as grown, foods as made, right?
Food as made, right?
We have a second big change, and that is we have seen over the last 50 to 100 years a dramatic increase in animal products. So now we have a change from plants to animal products. And people have this idea that, well, you have to have animal products because you need to have your protein, as if protein came only from animal sources. I mean, come on.
Right.
Better than that, right? And so you see the dramatic increase, particularly in the last 30, 40, 50 years, in terms of the chicken products, right? We used to eat chickpeas. Now we eat chickens.
Right.
And so you have changed everything with that. You have now animal protein versus plant protein. And when you have animal protein, you always have to worry about cholesterol because cholesterol is only found in animal products, right?
Right.
And also you have to worry about the fact that animal products have zero fiber.
No fiber, right.
You remember the little video clip that you showed earlier, Dr. in Africa?
Right.
Fiber consumption there, no constipation. They didn't have to worry about the common Western disease that we have here because the transit time is very, very short. Food comes in, goes out, that's it. In us, it stays for 3, 4, 5 days. So fiber is not found in animal products. So again, we have to be concerned about this. And then when you go one step further, you come now to the fact that these fat and fiber components are found in different rates in different foods. Look at this.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the amount of fat, of calories, of total calories in fruits, 1 to 5%, vegetables, 1 to 5%, whole grains, 5 to 10% of the calories here is fat. Then you have beans, legumes, about 5 to 10% comes from fat. Look at this. At the same time, when you look to the right column, you look at the number of grams of fiber per cup.
Right.
Which are the foods that have the highest fiber content? Look at this: fruits, vegetables, whole grains. Look at beans.
Right. Tremendous.
Look at the American average consumption is about 12 grams of fiber in the diet. We probably should have more like 30 or 40 or 50 grams.
Right. Right.
You cannot do this. You cannot accomplish this unless you look at the last two lines there. Animal products, 50 to 90% is basically fat. When you have a sirloin steak, that's 70% fat. When you have a piece of cheese, that's 70% fat. And then look at the amount of fiber you have in animal products.
And the big zero.
Big zero.
Right.
None.
Exactly. Right. Right.
You
That's why, we were on the line last night, a few of us from LMI, doing another webinar called The Power of Chip. Mm-hmm. And one of the questions from the audience was about gut health. How do you actually measure gut health? And as you just mentioned so appropriately, one of the easy ways to do that is to ask someone, how many bowel movements do you have per day? Sounds kind of weird, but it really is a great marker and a very good indicator of GI health. Are you getting heartburn or not? Are you moving your bowels or not? So really just taking a history from people can give you a good indication of whether or not they have good GI health or whether they end up like most of the people eating the standard American diet. And
yes.
I think it wasn't it Joel, Dr. Furman that coined the term G-bombs?
Yeah, right.
Greens, beans, onions, mushrooms. He talks about seeds and salads. Really thinking about those things and making sure that we're eating. And this is one of the great parts of the CHIP program. We talk about eating foods as grown. And when you eat those things on a regular basis, you have good gut health and you have good brain health and good heart health. And the list just goes on and on.
You mentioned about gut health.
Yeah.
About bowel movements. It's doing a family history and thinking that would give us an idea of what diseases we should look for. Maybe we should ask the question next time, how many bowel movements do you have a week?
Right, exactly. Well, family history, obviously that's something that we take a family history when we see our patients. And so many people will say, well, this disease is just because of my genetics or my heredity or my family history and such. What most people inherit is not bad genes. They inherit bad lifestyles. So,
bad diets, right.
Bad diets, bad lifestyles. They don't exercise, so we really have to be careful about that.
Yeah, take a look at the last two lines on the slide there, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Are very high in fat. They have no fiber to speak of. And then you have refined processed foods that we talked about earlier. Again, they're fairly high in fat, 20 to 60%. And again, minimal fiber. So obviously, you're missing out when you have an American diet that's largely centered around refined foods and animal products. It's centered around foods that are low in fiber, and therefore you don't really get this satiety. You don't get that filling of your stomach. You don't have the filling coming in that causes the stretching of the special receptors inside the stomach that send a message to the brain, hey, I'm full down here. And it turns off the appetite. See, that's what we're missing out when we're having the typical American diet, high in refined foods and high in animal products.
Yeah. The Power of CHIP program that we did last night, again, one of the studies that we talked about, there's not only a gut-brain connection, there's a gut-breast connection, because a lot of the studies actually show that people that have abnormal microbiomes A lot of the women have a higher incidence of breast cancer. So there's so much that we need to learn and understand about the microbiome and GI health. But we absolutely know that eating high fiber foods lowers the risk of all of the chronic illnesses, and eating the standard American diet with high fat does just the opposite.
Yeah.
What are we looking at here?
Well, you see, this is the American diet. I mean,
Yeah.
50% plus comes from refined foods. They're low in nutritional value, low in fiber. And then you have about 26 and 9%. That's animal products, 35%. And here's the important part. Dr. Sal, this is really stunning. Only 14% of the calories that we eat in America today comes from foods as grown, foods as they come in nature. And of course, are the fruits, and vegetables, and the whole grains, and the beans and peas, So only about, and some studies even now suggest it's less than 14%. So just imagine the food that was perhaps that we were designed for fruits and vegetables and whole grains and legumes as primary sources of fuel now represent only about 10 to 14% of the calories that we eat in America. And no wonder we have all these problems.
Yeah, I just took a picture of this slide because I want to use that again. We really need to emphasize the fact that more than 50 to 60% of the foods that we eat are unhealthy. So it's no wonder that people in this country, the far majority, are unhealthy. And it's our responsibility to at least educate people, and then it's the individual's responsibility to do something about it. So you have one more slide, I think.
Well, I had sort of a suspicion that you might ask me about
calorie density, right? Exactly. I don't think most people understand that. So explain again about calorie density, because that is an important point.
Well, I just listened to a presentation by Chef AJ. She explained very, very well. She said, if you take 1 pound of oil, you get 4,000 calories. If you take 1 pound of vegetables and fruits at the top of the line, you only get 50 to 400 calories, which means 10 times as many pounds of fruits and vegetables than having the same amount weight of oils or margarine or butter. And it's very important. Take a look. When you have high calorie dense foods, you basically take a small volume of food with a large number of calories.
Right. Exactly.
So when you have foods that are high in fat, you usually have a small amount, like with the Pringles here, right?
Yeah.
7 ounces. But if you eat them as they come in nature, like the potatoes, you can eat 3.5 pounds.
Right. Exactly. Right. Well, that gets back to the title of our presentation, right? Eat more, weigh less. So you have the pleasure of eating much more food on a plant-based diet. You do not have to count calories. We know that the calories that you are getting in are highly nutritious. So there's just all benefits and really no significant risks for sure. Now, what about exercise, though? The lifestyle, the principles of lifestyle medicine, obviously, a significant part of the foundation is on nutrition. But obviously, we also want to talk to our patients about exercise. So what's the deal between burning calories and eating the standard American foods and all?
I can be really very clear with you, right?
Yes, sir.
I will not offend you.
I don't know. Probably not.
It does not make a major contribution to weight loss, contrary to what you see on television with the big losers.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I had these 2 ladies here at Loma Linda, little ladies, and they came to me and they said, we want to lose some weight, sir. I said, well, you want to change your diet? No. What do you want to do? Oh, just give us an exercise prescription and that will take care of it. All right, that's fine. Because we know that for every mile that you walk, you burn 100 calories. Right? So I knew that if you wanted to lose 1 pound of weight, which is 3,500 calories, you have to walk 35 miles.
Right.
So I can calculate. I said, how many pounds do you want to lose? And then I can tell you how many weeks you have to walk to get it taken care of. So I gave them a prescription. And after about 5 months, they come back to me and they say to me, "Sir, your program didn't work. We have been gaining weight." I said, "You've been gaining weight? Now, wait a minute. Did you really do what I told you to do every day? Did you walk from the medical center to the Stater Brothers store every day, back and forth, once a day?" "Yes, sir." And I said, "You've done it every day?" "No." "Well, how often have you done it?" "Well, about 5 days a week." I said, "That's fine. 2 days is grace." So here are these two ladies walking 5 days a week.
Right.
They walk the 2 miles 5 times a week, and they gain weight. So I couldn't quite figure this out. And I said, "Tell me again, you walk from the medical center all the way to Stater Brothers to the big store there, right? And then you turn around?" We actually go inside." "Oh, what happens there?" "Oh, sir, I mean, we have just been walking the whole mile. We are elderly ladies. We have been so good. We deserve a Krispy Kreme."
Right.
You know, these ladies were so earnest about this, but they didn't understand.
Right.
Krispy Kreme donut is 400 calories. You have to walk 4 miles a day, and they were walking miles to get the calories.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's interesting. The pillars that we talk about in the CHIP program and in lifestyle medicine in general, certainly we want people to understand that you have to exercise for lots of reasons, for your brain health, for your bone health and your skeletal muscle health and all, because all of that really contributes to the overall health of the person. But it's unfortunate. The story of Jim Fixx, the marathon runner, really emphasizes the fact that you can't eat anything you want. I mean, that was his story. He ran 10 miles every single day, and his explanation was then he was able to eat whatever he wanted. Well, the poor guy in his early 50s, died of a heart attack. So it really is an unfortunate story that emphasizes the point that food is the foundation, the 2 F's, the foundation.
It is so true what you're saying. You cannot out-exercise. You cannot outwalk a bad diet.
Right, exactly.
Both ways.
Yep.
Having kind of given you a straight message that exercise is not the most effective way to lose weight, let me be sure to emphasize the importance of diet, of exercise.
Yeah,
for
sure.
all other functions, for memory, for living longer. I mean, it doesn't stop, but to really highlight exercise as an effective weight loss program. Right. It's part of it, but it's not really the big issue.
Correct. I want to make sure that we summarize for the people that are on the line before we finish here. So how would you summarize your presentation? What do they need to remember? What are the take-homes for them?
Well, I want to give you the magic 5.
All right.
So the magic of better choices. Number 1, we talked about reduce empty calories. Number 2, reduce animal products, right? And number 3, replace these 2 as much as possible with eating more whole foods, foods as grown, plant-based preferably, right? Number 4, we really want to make sure that we do not leave exercise out. We should do this every day. I usually try to get my 1 hour walking in the hills of Loma Linda here because it's part of my lifestyle. And number 5, I think we should also perhaps suggest to some people that it's very important for long-term success in weight management to tie into professional and social, emotional, and spiritual resources.
Yep.
If you have someone behind you that encourages you, that supports you, a person that is behind you. Some of the people, they have deep, deep hurts that are lingering there for decades. And to them, food becomes a great pacifier, comforter. And for these people, it's very, very important before they get into a program that we have recommended today, that you first take care of the deep-seated pain and get the forgiveness taken care of. You let go and you have a new start. And now you're ready to really make the other suggestion. talked
Yeah,
about.
Dick Tibbetts did one of our shows, and he talked about forgiveness and all, which is really powerful. And for the people that are on the line, you can actually go back and listen to his program. It's certainly well worth the time. I want to just look in the chat box here and emphasize, Maddie Buther, who's is actually one of our CHIP facilitators down here in Fort Myers. She said, as kids, we were not able to leave the table without eating our vegetables, and today kids don't even know where vegetables and fruits come from. That's a great point, and I think even to emphasize that further, we as parents and healthcare professionals and adults have to teach our children how to eat healthy food. If they, as adolescents, are addicted to going to McDonald's, it's our fault because we brought them there in the first place. So we really need to be smart about educating our kids early on into healthy food. And then Wilma, if you want, Wilma is asking, what are the must-read books to educate ourselves on this topic in and of itself? Do you have one book that you would recommend to the listeners?
Yeah, there's only one book you need to read, and that is my book. No.
That's it.
No, I think some of the best books are Michael Morris' book on salt, sugar, and fat. So that's one. Number two, you need to really take a look at Dr. Michael Greger's book, How Not to Diet.
Well, I can tell you one book that people are going to have to read between now and next week. We actually have the pleasure next week of having Dr. David Katz on the program. And this is Dr. Katz's book. And look at the size of that book. You only have 1 week to read this, so you better get this book and read it before next week. Let me see if
you can do much better than that. You can get my book, Health Power.
Yes.
356 pages.
Oh, Lord.
And lots of pictures. You can read this in 1 week.
Okay. And what is the name of that book again?
Health Power.
Health Power. Okay, excellent. So, Wilma, that's another must-read book. Let me see if there are any other questions. So Beverly's asking, what are your thoughts on intermittent fasting? She, I guess, listened to a radio program today, Health is Wealth, with a cardiologist and an internist and a neurologist who advised the listeners on intermittent fasting as the best way to lower weight and blood glucose.
Well, that's a new fad idea now that's coming around. I mean, it has always been part of our lifestyle issues, and that is to have if you are taking a breakfast, take it in about 8 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and don't eat after 6 o'clock at night. And that gives you that interval where you have about 10, 12 hours for your fasting from 6 o'clock at night. Mm-hmm. So the next morning, 7 o'clock, you got 13 hours. That's what I call interval fasting. That's much easier done than to find some kind of a window from, let's say, I don't eat between 12 o'clock at noon till 9 o'clock at night. No. Just have an early breakfast, 7, 8 o'clock, and have an early supper, and you sleep better with an early supper, right?
Yeah, and we're doing a lot of content upgrades, if you will, with the CHIP program in the next year. And we're really looking, I'm working with Jennifer Lovejoy, who is our VP of Innovation and Strategy. And we're really digging into the science. What does the science actually say about intermittent fasting? What does it say about another topic? So in the next year, we will have even more upgrades on the program that facilitators and other individuals can take to their clients and their friends and neighbors to really show the value of the CHIP program, which we know has been there for years and years.
Dr. Longo at the University of Southern California has shown that this interval fasting, which is a short fasting every day, we talked about 10, 12 hours, 14 hours, actually extends life and gives you a clearer mind. But, you can do that very easily by doing suggested in the CHIP program. Have an early supper, don't be too big, and have a solid breakfast in the morning for the next 4, 5, 6 hours. Then have a good meal at noon, and have a light supper early at night, and you're on your way to interval fasting.
Right, exactly. Well, we're going to talk to Dr. Katz more about that next week when he talks about the truth about food. But in the meantime, Dr. Diehl, I want to thank you not only for being on our show multiple times, which is excellent. These are always great programs, but for really more so for what you've done in the world of lifestyle medicine and for LMI and for founding the CHIP program. So we appreciate you tremendously. I'll leave you with a final word for the audience.
If you want to lose weight, eat more, but make the right choices.
There you go. Well, God bless you and your family, Dr. Diehl. It's a pleasure to see you again. Thank you for everybody that joined us today. We'll see you next week.